All right, how is everyone doing today? And welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel. We try to inform you and to walk you through many of these great theories of everything that I've dug up in my many years of research into somewhat random topics. Things you probably have never heard of before, but they are authored by people who really put their whole life into something, or at least a big chunk of their life, into digging out these gold nuggets, and they were actually never recognized in their lifetimes, or never got paid, never got, even read by most people. And we hope this helps you out with your paradigm shifting, your awakening to 5D consciousness, your formation of a holistic worldview, and your quest for better spiritual, mental, and physical health, along with your sovereignty. And, so we check out cosmologies and grand unified theories, all-encompassing theories, and also magnum opuses, tour de forces, and earth-shattering discoveries. And today is our 254th video that we've done on the unit that we're calling the Reciprocal Church, named after Dewey B. Larson and his great theory of everything that is called the Reciprocal System of Theory, which I've done nearly 600 videos on this channel. And but he unified all of the sciences, and then he unifies science and religion. And so we are kind of attempting to construct a religion that is sustainable and believable and rational and stands the test of time, and it doesn't insult your intelligence, and that it helps you get closer to your conception of the divine. Because we recognize that all of the Western religions, that includes Christianity, Judaism, Islam, it also includes Satanism, and I would also say that it includes scientism or atheism, materialism. These things are all about to fall apart under the weight of no evidence. But in particular, we're looking at Christianity today, but the Christianity also takes out Satanism. You don't really have Satanism unless you have Christianity. The Satans that are, discussed in the Old Testament are generally humans or obstructions, impediments, but they're not like gods. They're not all-powerful and rivals of God. Now, there are like Moloch and Ashtaroth, but these were also gods that were worshipped by the Hebrews. So this was much more of a polytheistic thing in the Old Testament, but we will get back to the Old Testament later. For now, we're working on the New Testament, and the evidence is pretty clear to me, at least, that the New Testament was written in its entirety by the Romans, the Caesars, who were in control of Judea for this whole time period of the first century BC and AD, and they are the ones who had the motive. They had, because the Jews were fighting the Jews in wars and skirmishes and revolutions for this whole period, for the 150 years before this. And then also, so they wanted to propose a Jewish hero, savior, Messiah, who was a Prince of Peace, who believed in turning the other cheek and rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and walking an extra mile with the Roman's backpack, and the Roman slave owner has the greatest faith in all of Israel, and many other things that Jesus says in favor of the Romans during the Gospels. And so what they did is they wrote up the Gospels really as plays, and these were started in a much earlier period in the reign of Tiberius, when Jesus was actually supposed to be existent, but didn't really culminate until after the Jewish War of 66 to 73 AD. And they backdated Jesus' life by 40 years. And really, a lot of the things that Jesus predicts or prophesies in the Gospels, they come true in a book by Josephus called Wars of the Jews. And they are fulfilled by the Roman Emperor Titus, who was one of the military generals for the Romans in this war against the Jews. So Titus is written in as the second coming of Jesus. And there are many other parallels between these two works. Josephus is normally used by the Christians to justify Christianity as a corroborating witness, the only corroborating witness of the first century. Anybody who actually mentioned the existence of Jesus, there is nobody except for Josephus in the first century, other than the Gospels and the rest of the New Testament. In the second century, there were several others, but they were all also insiders to the Roman imperial throne. The Gospels emanated from Rome, not from Palestine. The Romans had the means, the motive, the opportunity, the resources, and they also had the method, having already created a number of different religions during the last 100 years before this. But mainly, it's even more than that, is really just the censorship. The Romans, the Roman imperial court, the Roman emperor, really was the only person who could publish material. It was either, one of them or one of his agents, like his court historian or his court poet or whatever, he would publish them, but nobody else had the ability to publish anything in this time period, and much less get it disseminated widely, such that it already had gotten to Rome within a generation. That's because it came from Rome, and the author named Josephus, even according to his own autobiography, and according to, well, I suggest that Josephus never existed and he was just a pen name for one of the Romans. But in Josephus's own autobiography, he states that he was living at Rome as an adopted member of the royal family after defecting from the Jews and getting pardoned by Emperor Vespasian, who he surrendered to, as Vespasian was the general and then became the emperor. And so these are the Flavian emperors, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Josephus was adopted into their family. He was known as Flavius Josephus. Flavius means blonde or golden. And so what we're looking at is basically that Josephus's Wars of the Jews and the Gospels are written by the same people at the same time for the same reason. And the reason is to demonstrate that they wrote both to mock you, to ridicule you, to demean you, to degrade you. Much of the humor involved in this mockery is of a bawdy and pornographic type. Much of the rest of it is evokes a great deal of cannibalism, and really like Molochism, eating your own babies, and other disgusting things. And as long as you continue to worship this book, this New Testament, you are in on it, So please pay attention to this. What we are looking at, a book here written by a guy named Michael Menescotz, Menasgotz, and he is maybe the 10th author that I can think of that has openly come out with this Roman origins of Christianity hypothesis. But this book is recent, from the last 6 months, and it's called Christianity's Origins as a Flavian Secrecy Cult. But what he does in here that's groundbreaking, in my opinion, is he finds as many parallels as he can between the New Testament and Wars of the Jews. The New Testament has 24 chapters. I mean, not the New Testament, in particular, the book of Luke. The book of Luke has 24 chapters. And Wars of the Jews has 694 paragraphs in 7 volumes. He sets up a graph. He graphs out the book of Luke on the vertical axis, the Josephus books on the horizontal axis. Whenever he finds a parallel, he puts a dot there. At the end of finding 250 parallels from Wars of the Jews and the Gospels, he then looks and sees that he has written out 5 Roman letters, A, P, T, V, S, or that V may be a U, A, P, T, U, S, or V, S. And he's trying to kind of determine what these really mean. I think this is kind of a lot of hair splitting, because I believe he actually uses the term hair splitting, because the important part is that the Romans did it. Okay, it's somebody within the court of the Roman Caesars who did this. Don't know exactly who, and it ultimately doesn't really matter all that much who did it. But he has, so he's getting kind of into the weeds here going with this. Most of the book is spent going through all the 250 parallels and to delving into how skillfully these things were put together. Not all of them, but very many of them, with just very thick descriptions of parallels on 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 different themes, just in like a paragraph or two. And how they often are just mocking and kind of degrading you if you believe in it, but you're not in on the joke. They're laughing at you if you're still believing in this. And to be honest, really the Romans are still in control now. They wrote this up 1950 years ago, and it has not been discovered by enough people to really kind of dethrone them. We're still in the Holy Roman Empire, and this is especially true when you take James Ballantyne Hanna's, the Oxford professor from about 100 years ago. He suggests that the Romans also created the Old Testament, and they created Hebrew also, and the Jews never existed. He says that there are no inscriptions in Palestine in Hebrew. Everything is either in hieroglyphs or in Sumerian cuneiform. I don't know if that's true. I know the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered there. I don't know exactly where the Dead Sea Scrolls came from or what they are, but that seems to kind of throw a wrench in his theory. But I still think it's possible that the Jews and the Romans are working together. They're pretending to fight these wars, but they're not. And so, when we look at our conspiracy theories, we generally say, oh, it's the Jesuits, or it's the Jews, the Illuminati and all of that. Well, the Jesuits and the Jews may well be the same people. So, okay. And this also takes a sledgehammer to a lot of Western civilization. When you recognize that Josephus is probably the most famous first century writer, he's been crossed off the list. William Shakespeare, all of his plays are about this very topic, but it's a counterattack. from a Jew to the Gentiles or to the Romans. William Shakespeare was actually a woman named Amelia Bassano. You can find this out in Joseph Atwill's second book, the Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, which came out after his 2005 book, Caesar's Messiah, where he goes through all of this and goes through the plays, several of them. And in more detail, this is gone through by John Hudson in his book, Shakespeare's Dark Lady. And many, many, many other famous authors throughout the centuries have also known this truth and have talked about it, but generally in code. So we're trying to kind of give you the code so that you can pick all this stuff out for yourself. And so that's where Menescats comes in, where he kind of dissects this stuff, and you can kind of see where he's going with it and where, like, how they construct these different parallels. But for the meanwhile, I think that we're going to be going through some of the weeds here, where he's debating with Roman Piso and Abelard Reuchlin, two of the authors that independently determined that this guy named Arius Piso, who was kind of a, they say, is kind of like the shadow emperor to Vespasian and Titus, that he was the author of the Gospels. And that is the AP of the APTVS pattern. So it could be Arius Piso Titus Vespasian, or Vespasianus could maybe give you the S. But Roman Piso and Abelard Reuchlin, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, they both independently came up with this. Reuchlin was way back in 1979. And he demolishes, what they did is they basically read in the original Latin or Greek the letters between all these Roman royals. And they reveal all of the different pseudonyms that they used, and they kind of had to play a little shell game with the names. And it took them a lot of painstaking work to figure out who was who. But then they both independently determined that it was Arius Piso from the very powerful Piso family. But Menescats says, as such, I respectfully suggest that Roman Piso and Abelard Reuchlin nearly had it spot on, but the modification that I propose offers a better fit with the observed facts. While I do agree that the hints in the Gospels do point to those two words, Arius and Piso, I think it's more likely that it would usually be spelled Ares Piso, Ares, A-R-E-S, like the god Mars, the god of war, rather than Arius Piso. This is perhaps splitting hairs, since not only are they phonetically so similar, but Arius is the Latinization of the Greek for Ares anyway. Either way, Ares is another name for Mars, the god of war, the same Roman god Mars, whose hill Paul was at when he talks of an altar to an unknown god. This line of thinking points to APTVS being an abbreviation of the following name, Ares Piso Titus. So he goes with the Titus as T-U-S. So he uses, I guess, he's using the last three letters of Titus, and he's not using Vespasian at all. Whilst I cannot rule out that APTVS refers to two separate people, Ares or Arius Piso and Emperor Titus, I see the entire focus of the religion as being solely on worship of the ruling emperor. So it seems unlikely that Emperor Titus, okay, I gotta turn the page here, which is a little bit of a chore. It's a good thing he puts so many characters on one page, because I don't have to turn the page very often. Usually like once a show at the most. But, okay. Okay, this section, I don't know. It didn't seem like we had already completed that last section, but I guess we had. Because this is the next page. Oh no, it isn't. I'm sorry. I skipped 2 pages here. I'm sorry about that. Please be patient with me here. I should be trying to. Oh boy, I've got a problem. We will try to figure this out somehow. It looks like this might be the right page, but it isn't. Okay, well, I have the book here, but I have to, the print is so small that it's almost impossible to read it, and I certainly won't be able to lift my head up or anything like that, but sorry about this. Okay, so the last sentence that we were on here, Ares or Ares Piso and Emperor Titus, I see the entire focus of the religion as being solely on worship of the ruling emperor. So it seems unlikely that Emperor Titus would have wanted to share his great message with a cousin, and more likely that he would choose a message which involved asserting either Roman divinity and or a leadership position in the hugely powerful and royal Piso family. Now, so his thesis is basically of the, he calls it a Flavian secrecy cult. So he says that first you get them hooked on Jesus as the hero of the story. Then you get them into Jesus as the savior. Then you show them that the prophecies that Jesus makes in the Gospels are fulfilled by Titus at the same location and usually offset by exactly 40 years in Wars of the Jews by Josephus. And then you learn that the whole story about Jesus is an invention, fiction. And so that gets you hooked on what he calls pure emperor worship. And so that's what he says that these are, the purpose of these are. Again, I think it's kind of not as important as just what he doesn't state explicitly as the main point of this is that there are 250 parallels in just the book of Luke from Wars of the Jews. And when you graph them out, they make a pattern. It doesn't even have to be any particular pattern. It's just any pattern. It's not noise, in other words. It's not random. They did this on purpose, and they actually signed their name to these as proof that it was not done by the semi-literate followers of Jesus in Palestine who did not, even if they were literate, they most likely didn't speak Greek. And even if they did speak Greek, they probably didn't write it. So, but that would be totally explainable if they were Romans, because Greek was kind of the lingua franca of the Romans, where Latin was more of the elite language. Okay. Indeed, given the degree to which double meanings are standard fare for the Gospels, it is very plausible that Titus planned to either of the above to be asserted depending on the audience. Okay, so they first wrote the Gospels for the Jews, to subdue the Jews. But eventually, with the epistles of Paul, which are written later, not earlier than the Gospels, written as late as 110 AD by Pliny the Younger, who was the younger foster brother of Arius Piso and also an insider to the Roman throne. He was Paul. He wrote the epistles. The epistles are targeted to the Gentiles, to the slaves and the soldiers and other commoners amongst the Romans. Perhaps we could even, maybe if I turn the light on a little bit, that might be better. Perhaps we could even imagine a ceremony where the priest recounts who is apt to push the plow across the firmament. And so this is apt. Apt is the first three letters of that, but it also means fitting. Who is apt to push the plow across the firmament? This is also referring to, the plow is known as the Big Dipper, and the firmament is the sky. And so it's bringing in like a zodiacal reference. And that is also, you know, Aries is also, you know, one of the constellations. So there may be some link here. I still kind of, you know, feel like he's in the weeds here, but I'm going to read the whole book. So, you know, we're going to maybe have a couple episodes where we don't get to the meat of the subject. So that also is that's a line from the book of Luke. I'm not sure where it is. He doesn't say, but he's stated it before. And the flock might respond with, God alone is apt. So the most senior rank, those that have been sold on pure emperor worship, so the most senior rank could smile smugly, knowing that the mid-level rank didn't understand that apt was the secret name of God. And the mid-level rank could smile smugly at the junior rank who didn't know that Titus was Jesus' second coming. And the junior rank could smile smugly at the entry-level rank who didn't even know that Jesus was God. I guess. But there's still a difficulty. If Jesus had simply chosen to add a T, resulting in TVS, that would seem adequate for his needs, without any need to add nearly 200 paragraphs to Jewish war, which entails a lot of extra cost to pay scribes, to make copies, to give to all of the churches and temples. Making books was extremely expensive prior to the invention of the printing press in like 1450 or something. So what was it then? What was it then justified adding so much extra cost? And there is a better reason. Okay, so also I just wanted to point out again that not only is the publishing extremely expensive, prohibitively expensive for probably anybody but a royal, but also the dissemination of the information is also monopolized by the Romans, who were the only people who were in charge of the so-called post office, whatever they called it. You know, Paul talks about all of these churches that he's writing his epistles or his letters to. Well, nobody other than the Romans are going to be delivering those letters. So, Paul is either saying that he's a Roman himself, which he is, Pliny the Younger, or he's lying about his ability to get these letters sent any place, to the church of Ephesus or to the church of Thessalonica or whatever. That's nonsense. The whole Gospels, the whole New Testament is utter nonsense when you really look at it objectively. I mean, I don't want this to be true, but it's obviously true. The Romans are the only people who could have done it. And the fact that they signed their name to it in a number of different ways is only ignored by the most ignorant. And so I'm telling you now, putting you on notice. And so now you can no longer pretend that you don't know. I think we're going to cut it short today because of my error of not having the right page photographed to read to you. And I don't really have time to re-record this video. And so sorry for the, wasting your time, more or less, with trying to find the page and everything. But hopefully you got something out of the video anyway, and enough so that you can come back tomorrow and see where we go from there. Hopefully he'll get back into the parallels. That's really what I'm reading it for, to go through all the parallels that he discusses and to evaluate how strong they are or how not strong they are and how believable they are. That's what I really love about this theory, is that you can figure it out for yourself. You can get yourself a copy of Josephus. You can go through the book. You can get a PDF online for free. You can go through the book and read it alongside your Bible. And then you can see the parallels for yourself. You don't have to take somebody's word for it, not even mine. And so thanks for tuning in today.